Okay, the next chapter is called In Conclusion. But before we continue with this chapter, do you guys think you could follow me on Unite the 99? This is Billy Carson's social network where it's a big community of people who are all interested in learning the exact same kind of stuff that I talk about on this channel. And you can post all kinds of stuff on here and they won't censor you. There is no algorithm that will, that will limit your visibility. Like everything you post gets put right into this news feed and then everyone can see it. Also, if you could, on my YouTube channel, because I'm so heavily censored, if you could subscribe, unsubscribe, and then subscribe back. I've heard that this is tricking the algorithms and allowing people to get some more visibility. And then if you could also like, unlike, and then like it again. I'm going to test this out just because, again, I've heard some other YouTubers say that this is helping them get past the censorship algorithms. Okay, let's continue. Initially, we have formulated the hypothesis that in our past there has been some contact with extraterrestrial civilizations, and later we have asked, is there an opportunity to learn more? Can we give substance to the hypothesis? Have we obtained any evidence? But above all, we wondered whether the most important sacred text of the Western religion had recorded any knowledge and memory of such events. During our discussion, we have seen how the Roman Catholic Church has been forced to admit that the Bible has records of such reality, whose story turns out to be substantially equivalent to the Sumerians when they describe the Anunnaki and their flying machines. We have pointed out the concreteness characterizing the detailed descriptions of events, timings, and geographical locations of the stories. Our objection to the traditional interpretation is that it is much more likely that whomever wrote the sacred text on paper has transposed the story of the real physical phenomena which hundreds and maybe thousands of people had repeatedly witnessed. This phenomena was recorded by a way of memory which must have been handed down over time in its substantial aspects, but with all the variations and the oral transmissions inevitably produces. Also, recorded is the concreteness that has drawn the authors of the Old Testament and admits the unthinkable, namely that God dies like all other men. We examine a number of concepts that tradition has interpreted and reworked in the light of the monotheistic dogma, the Ten Commandments, the blessing, the glory of God, the angels, and the prophets' visions. Finally, we have realized that even the most mystical of the inspired texts contain origins of very human situations that are motivated by personal, social, cultural, and historical heritage. This is also the reason why doctrines and interpretations of religious tradition do not necessarily always lead to fixable contradictions and theological issues that are being debated for centuries with no universal accepted solutions are proof of this. Everything contained in these texts becomes understandable if we simply look at the Bible as one of many works of man, which are inevitably full of contradictions and uncertainties. Once you accept that the so-called sacred texts are but works written by men, with all the limits due to the human imperfection, there is no point to introduce the concepts of mystery or the hidden God who does not want to reveal totally, to avoid trampling on men's free choice. When there is a linear, comprehensible explanation of an event, it is absolutely useless, and in this case also absurd and overwhelming, to introduce misleading motivations. A simple reading guided by rules of common sense and rationality would be sufficient. Don't they say that reason is the highest gift of God has granted men, don't they say that reason is the highest gift of God granted to men in order to search, know, and follow him? We have tried to use it here. The memory of the superior beings. All possible questions fall away if we accept that religions were created as an attempt to rebuild, reinvent, tried to contact with those superior beings considered quote-unquote divine because of their peerless supremacy in terms of knowledge, ability, and power. These were individuals who lived so long that they were regarded as immortal, individuals who knew the secrets of nature and the cosmos and transmitted those secrets only to their faithful followers, thereby starting the quote-unquote initiated caste of kings, rulers, and priests. Individuals who could travel through the sky, covering unimaginable distances in a short time, as to be unconceivable for those who only walked. Individuals who used intermediaries to manage their power and communicated with humanity through filters such as these quote-unquote angels in order to prevent direct contact. Individuals who had created man using genetic engineering techniques just as we do today, but only after having regained the ancient wisdom with great effort and a very long time. In summary, these were individuals from other worlds that the writers of the Bible knew very well, as the Catholic Church also confirms. Another title here says, Concluding Thoughts and One Last Question. Meanwhile, writing this book, the Western world is living a particular historical moment when mankind is discussing over bioethics, and the Roman Church is very close to the truth. When they affirm that by using DNA manipulation, man wants to be like God, they are probably correct. Man is actually trying to imitate those who have created him. The repeated attempts to create is part of a process in which we are gradually acquiring the same full knowledge as those who have created us with their image and resemblance. Then in parentheses it says, with the initial aim of exploiting us as their laborers to serve and honor them, and finally to manage the planet they have entrusted us. Once the direct contact was lost, either because those quote-unquote gods disappeared, mixed into society with their creatures, or more simply just returned home, man felt orphaned by the Father and tried to elaborate his figure in spiritual terms. Since man was not able to reproduce him materially, the basis of that knowledge is now lost forever. The religious man has kept on trying to recreate the figure of God, self-attributing a very special position, a status of superiority compared to other living species. He feels a God's child, while most probably he is simply the result of a genetic engineering which has enriched his DNA and allowed him to reach the peak of the primate's lineage, one for the branches of life in its constant evolution. The evolution always produces the highest result possible in relation to the environment in which it develops. In his preliminary notes for a universal assessment of the contents of the human mind, Professor A. Bertirodi, professor of cultural and mind anthropology at University of Florence, writes that while it is true that humanity is currently the highest expression of one of many evolutionary lines, the idea that man is superior to other life systems is not only actually wrong, but can induce attitudes that may be, just as currently happening in universal history, absolutely negative. He continues by stating that the originality of the human species must be sought elsewhere. Accordingly, we believe that the real, great, and original ability of man is the skeptomia, namely the inquiring, constant striving for Yahweh, Asher Hiyah, and in parentheses it says, I am what I am, I will be who I will be. This inquiring shows a tendency towards the idea of deity, whoever it was, or will be in a possible future revelation. Let us ask one last shocking question. When we talk of the quote-unquote return of God, does it mean we have to wait for a return of our creators? It is a fascinating possibility, and what if they are already here in our present? While the sacred book tells us of their past in hindsight, who knows, they could be fully immersed in our present history, a history we have tried to reconstruct in Appendix 1. You, freethinker, have arrived at the end of this book and have demonstrated yourself to be open-minded and yet firmly anchored to the ground. Enjoy the rest of the reading and your search along the free path of knowledge. Your soul will certainly find its way. Okay, now we're in the Appendix 1. Okay, and then this is just like a timeline, basically, from what it seems like. So I think that that was the end of the book, but then it's going into this appendix. Okay, so that was the end of the book. The rest of this is just additional information, about what we already went over, the glossary, the terms, things like that. Kind of, it looked like it was a timeline at first, but yeah, so here it is, the bibliography, the glossary, the index, all that. Anyways, what did you think? I thought that was a pretty interesting book, how he, took the original translations in Hebrew and showed us what the Bible really meant, which is completely different than what I was taught in the private school that my parents made me go to. It was completely different than what was taught in all the churches that I attended as a kid. And when you think about these books, like these religious documents, and you actually have a reference point in regards to highly advanced technology and genetic engineering and manipulating DNA, and you can view this with an open third eye and an understanding of advanced technology, it all makes perfect sense that we were genetically manipulated. And there's probably still tons of other genetic manipulations going on this planet with different species and on other planets all over the place. And when I first started this channel, I was mainly just interested in archaeology and ancient history because I thought it was cool. But the more and more I went down that rabbit hole, the more I discovered about how we got to be in this situation we're in right now, where we are fully enslaved by a fake money system, by corrupt governments, and how everything from the television shows to the money systems, the commodities, the healthcare systems, the education systems, everything is being manipulated, and we are being suppressed. We're being suppressed with our health, we're being suppressed with our technology, we're being suppressed spiritually, we're being suppressed evolutionary. These controllers, their systems of enslavement are still here to this day, and they are suppressing the entire human race from evolving to a highly advanced species. All right, that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. If you like the audiobooks, just let me know in the comments. I am looking for some more books to do in the future.